Save the King!
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Pod Save the King. It's Jennifer Newton here, the Mirror's Deputy Royal Editor. Unfortunately, Russell can't join us this week. Hopefully he'll be back next week. But instead, I'm joined by Charlotte Foster, the Mirror's Royal Reporter, to go through what's been happening in the royal world this week. A little bit quieter this week because it seems like quite a few of the big name players are on holiday, but there's still loads to talk about, as ever, as we always have loads to talk about. So welcome, Charlotte. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Like I say, there has been a lot going on despite the royals been off on their holidays. But maybe we should start with something that happened earlier this week. So actually something that you might have more of an interest in than some others that might be on this podcast, in the fact that Meghan, she was on an episode of MasterChef Australia earlier this week. So we kind of knew that she was going to be on this program because they teased it, didn't they, when they went to Australia in April. We saw little teaser clips out that Meghan had recorded this episode. So yeah, she was on the episode on Sunday night on the 18th season of the cooking show, where contestants were challenged to take a staple ingredient and turn it into a dish fit for a duchess. I don't know, obviously we do have MasterChef in this country, but from what I can see, the vibe on MasterChef Australia is a little bit different. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what MasterChef Australia is like, maybe compared to the UK version and other versions?
Yeah, sure. I haven't seen too much of the UK version, but from what I've seen of it, it looks quite a lot more serious than the Australian version. Maybe the Australian version kind of steers a bit more like very reality TV. But still always have great contestants and like very, very talented home cooks. But yeah, so Meghan was a guest judge for the episode, which I believe kind of picked the contestants for the semi-final. So like quite a big episode. And during the judging portion of the episode, they had a special guest caller, and Prince Harry had FaceTimed in to say hello to everybody, which obviously all of the contestants and the other judges were very, very excited. I believe Harry at the time was maybe in Canberra or somewhere else in Australia, taking on a different engagement, while Meghan was in Melbourne filming the show. But she kind of showed her phone around and get everybody to give him a wave and showed him all of the food that she was tasting, and it was quite a sweet moment, I think.
Do you think it was sweet? Or do you think?
I'm kind of in two minds about it, because obviously, like, if you're thinking of Meghan, you're probably not soon after thinking of Harry. Obviously, it would have been a very big moment for the contestants to have a wave to Harry, even if it's through a phone screen. But at the same time, it was maybe a bit, I don't want to say cringe, but maybe it was a bit of a cheap shot, I guess. What do you think?
It was a little bit cringe for me, but I will say, I don't know if this was, Harry or Meghan's idea to do this phone call, or if it was the producer's idea. Maybe they were kind of coaxed into it. I think what made it just a little bit cringe was that it was when Meghan was handed the phone and she saw that it was Harry, and she said, "Hi, my love, my husband's here." And then he did the whole Australian. He tried to do the accent.
He tried to do a good day.
He did try to do a good day, and then Meghan said, "He's a charmer, isn't he?" Yeah,
I think the cringe part of it was that they kind of pretended like it was a surprise phone call.
Yeah.
It was like, we've had a call into the studio, like so random, but obviously there's so much planning and would have got into it.
Yeah, I think it was the random part of it. But, maybe it wasn't them that decided on it. Maybe that was part of the agreement that Meghan was on the show, that Harry had to make a 30-second
cameo.
30-second cameo as well. But what I found quite interesting about the programme as well is that Meghan did give a little glimpse of what happened back home in Montecito when she's obviously cooked the meals for the family, because she was asked what she likes to cook for the family, and she said she had a lot of palates to appease. So I think a lot of families can relate to that, can't they? When, one person wants one thing, another person wants another, and then you end up cooking, 4 or 5 different meals for the family.
Yes, especially with young kids around.
Yeah, and then she said that Archie and Lilibet are great eaters who enjoy Brussels sprouts, which is
very true to
interesting.
their English heritage, I guess.
Yeah, a Brussels sprout's not a thing elsewhere
I
in the
don't think
world.
I've ever had a Brussels sprout. I know you can definitely buy them, but when I think of a Brussels sprout, I think like English Sunday roast.
Yeah, they're very much part of the Christmas dinner here. I mean,
Yes.
I can't say they're my favourite part of the Christmas dinner. I do have one. I'll have one or two on my plate just to say that I've had one and it's Christmas. But it's not something I would choose, but it is part of the tradition, I guess. And she said that Harry's upbringing meant he preferred meat, potatoes, and cream sauce, while she preferred grilled meats, fish, and citrus growing up in California. Is that what, us people in the UK are known for? Meat, potatoes, and cream sauce? I'm not too sure.
I know cream sauce was weird. That was why not gravy?
Yeah, I think it was more gravy, especially if you're like me in Northern,
Yeah.
and it's more gravy. But I mean, overall, how would you sum up this appearance, Meghan? Do you think it was a good move for her? Do you think it was successful? Do you think this could lead to more of these type of appearances? Should she be doing them?
I think it was on the whole, I think it was quite successful. Obviously, we saw that the ratings for the episode had come out from the Australian network, who share the viewing figures for the week, and it broke records with the number of people who tuned in to watch, both live and on streaming. So clearly a lot of people tuned in to watch. I think it does make sense for her to be on it, in a sense of obviously she's moving into this kind of lifestyle space with her As Ever brand and her With Love Meghan Netflix series.
Yeah.
Obviously she's very interested in that kind of space. I do think MasterChef was maybe an interesting choice though.
Yeah.
Because MasterChef Australia, especially, I grew up watching it occasionally. Those kind of guest judge positions are reserved for quite high caliber chefs.
Yeah.
And was chatting with my dad, who is an avid MasterChef Australia watcher, and he was like, it's maybe the contestants might have felt a bit cheated out by having Meghan there and not someone who's a big high profile chef in Australia, to give them a lot of very tangible cooking advice, which I think is a valid criticism. Obviously, as with everything Meghan does, there were a lot of people who were happy with it, a lot of people who weren't happy with it. But I think, considering that it seemed quite successful and the viewing figures were good, I wouldn't be surprised if we see her on more of these kinds of shows. I think MasterChef Australia was a bit of a rogue choice for her first appearance on a show like this, but I could definitely see more in the future. What do you think?
Well, like you say, if the ratings were good, which it seems like they were, that if they had record ratings for MasterChef from that episode, I think for the network's point of view, it would have paid off. From Meghan's point of view, it would have paid off. So I think probably was quite successful all around. And like night follows day, there's always going to be some people who, when it comes to Harry and Meghan, there's always going to be some people who love what they do and some people who dislike what they do or hate what they do. So I think probably it was a good move for her. And yeah, we'll just wait and see if she does anything more like this in the future. Obviously, the reason probably she was on there, because it was kind of hinted, wasn't it, during the episode about the flour sprinkles and the As Ever brand, and she's got a new jam out this week. It seems like potentially she might have to sell a few more jars of this jam, because Prince Harry, he's been back in the news this week. So obviously he lost his quite big privacy case against the publisher of the Daily Mail earlier this month. And the case was back at the High Court in London this week, where it was said that, well, they were discussing, the costs that his side were liable to pay. And it looks like he's going to have to pay out millions of pounds to settle this case. But we have to wait a few more weeks to find out exactly what each person who took this action against the Daily Mail publisher will have to pay. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about that in a future episode. But one thing that we found quite interesting this week is, obviously, it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago, Harry was over here with Meghan, and they had that visit to the UK where they visited Highgrove. We've seen today there's been reports that while on the trip they also went up to Scotland as well. So they did, travel quite a bit around the UK. I talked last week with Russell that about the trip to Althorpe as well, to visit the estate where the late Princess Diana is buried. And we kind of know that well, it's essentially weeks really. In September, Harry's expected to be back in the UK. Well, he goes to the Well Child Awards, which is held every September. He hasn't really missed one of those, even in the times since he's left the royal family. He's always been to the Well Child Awards, which takes place in September. And it now seems that when he comes back over here in the UK, in a matter of weeks, the king is going to offer him a room at Buckingham Palace, where it was pretty much chaos, wasn't it, a few weeks ago over the Buckingham Palace accommodation situation. One side saying, well, essentially what happened was Harry's people put out a statement saying that he was going to be staying at Buckingham Palace. The palace went, no, hold on, you're not going to be staying at Buckingham Palace. And then, the reasonings why it didn't come off was because he didn't give them enough notice, and the fact that he was going to get this verdict in this case against the Daily Mail while he was going to be at the palace. And I think that made people there quite nervous. Are you surprised that potentially in a few weeks that he's going to be offered, well, he could potentially be staying at the palace again because he's been offered this invitation?
I don't think I am surprised, because I think it just shows how well their reunion at Highgrove went. I think, like, if he, obviously there was, as you said, so much drama only a couple of weeks ago around him staying at Buckingham Palace last time. But I think if it is true that invitation has been extended again, I think that's a sign that the meeting at Highgrove went really well and they are on their way to mending their relationship. Obviously, these things take time, but also maybe Harry has learnt his lesson from the last time and he's actually giving enough notice to stay at Buckingham Palace and doing all the things following all the rules that he'll have to follow in order to stay there. But it will be interesting to see if he accepts the invitation. Obviously, it's a major hotspot in London, and as we've said before, he's often worried about his security when he's in his home country. So it will be interesting to see if he accepts. What do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, I was going to say it's one thing given that getting offered the invitation, getting offered the chance to stay at the palace. And we know that it hasn't just been on the last visit that he made a few weeks ago. He'd been offered accommodation previously, which he'd turned down, citing security reasons, which is a little bit baffling, but, that's his reason. That's his reason. So, yeah, it's one thing to be offered it, but it's another thing to accept. I mean, he did seemingly, after, going back and forth a little bit, accept. It just so happened that it was a bit too late the last time when he was over here a few weeks ago. So I think if he accepted last time, he should probably accept this time. But, it might be a different situation. Last time when they came over, although we didn't know at the time, it was thought like, Meghan and the children were going to be with him in London. So maybe that maybe that factor made him want to stay at the palace. Whereas this time when he comes over, are Meghan and the children going to be with him, because she hasn't been to the Well Child Awards for quite a while. School will be back in, it's September. So, will they want to take the children out of school to go back to the UK? So there are a lot of factors. So yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, if he wants to stay there, if Charles wants him to stay there and he gives enough notice, why can't he stay there? That's the way I see it. It's pretty simple. But, I think there are more factors at play. And we know when it comes to Harry that nothing's always quite as simple, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So talking of the palace, like we say, the royals are on holiday this week. We haven't really seen, Charles and Camilla out too much. I think Charles was visiting an RAF base earlier this week. But apart from that, Camilla hasn't been seen out in public. A few of the other royals, they headed up to Scotland for the Commonwealth Games. I think we saw the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh and Princess Anne in Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games yesterday. But yeah, it very does much feel like summer holidays. But there was actually some quite significant news to some coming out of the palace this week, and that is that Sir Clive Alderton, the King's principal private secretary, so effectively his right-hand man, is going to step down. So he turns 60 next May, and he's going to step down next May. He put out a message to staff on Monday when he announced that he was going to be stepping aside, and said, "It has been the greatest imaginable honour to serve the King and Queen in my present role through such historic times and with unforgettable humour along the way. The support will continue in a less formal capacity for all of my life." And, people might look at this news and think, oh, well, one of the King's staff's leaving. Why does that matter? But I think it does matter in a way because, as we reported in the Mirror earlier this week, he has been one of the most influential figures on the royal family. He's worked for the royal household on and off for the past 20 years. And he has been at the king's side through some of the, pretty big moments in his more recent life in terms of when the Queen died. He helped steer him through the early days of that reign. And that wasn't always going to be easy, I don't think, because there was a little bit of nervousness about how people would receive Charles as the king. But as we saw, it went pretty well. And I think one of the reasons for that, not the only reason, but one of the reasons for that is, he can put down to Sir Clive's work. And, at the time, I remember when the king came back to Buckingham Palace for the first time after his mother's death as king. And it was incredible scenes, really. All those people were hugging him and giving him a kiss, which you can't imagine them doing to the late
Yeah.
Queen. And, he remarked, that's the sign of the new reign, informal formality. And he's been at his side at all those big state visits that he's done in recent years, which have been really important, and given those really historic speeches at the likes of Congress a few weeks ago when the King and Queen were in the US, in Berlin when they visited Germany on the first state visit, and not just matters of state. Well, of course, matters of state, because we've had 4 prime ministers in that time as well, but also being someone he can call on for advice when it comes to more private matters. So with the likes of the estrangement from Prince Harry, and then also the situation facing Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. So when you think about it, when Sir Clive, obviously he's going to be around until next May, but the search for his replacement is going to start now, because obviously they need to have the right man or the right woman for the job. And you looked into a little bit earlier this week, didn't you, about what this role of principal private secretary, especially to the king or the monarch, is like. Can you tell us a little bit what is expected of them?
Yeah, so it is obviously an all-encompassing role, let's say.
Yeah.
The person who will step into Sir Clive's role has to have a lot of knowledge about the Church of England, a lot about all kind of military matters, a lot about UK politics, but also politics for all of the Commonwealth countries.
Yeah.
And be across his entire diary of any official engagements, any state visits, all of these huge events that are going on all the time behind the scenes. And also, being there as kind of a friend and an advisor
almost
in a more personal sense as well, as you said, with the issues going on with Harry and with Andrew, but also with Charles's cancer diagnosis. That was a big thing for them to be, to have an advisor for. And it's like, it is an all-encompassing, no time off role. Like, it is arguably one of the most important in the royal household. So I think it will be a very extensive search to find the right person.
Yeah, I think so as well, because I like I say, I just can't. I don't think it can be underestimated, the influence that Sir Clive has had on the way the royal family works. Like you say, even that when we learned that the king had this cancer diagnosis 2 years ago, it could have gone quite different. I think it was a little bit nervy. Like, what do you do when the head of state, is he going to be not able to fulfill his duty? And I think they did handle it really well, and I don't think anyone can really criticize the palace much in that respect. One person that might be a little bit happy about the news about Sir Clive is Prince Harry, because I think the reason why Sir Clive kind of became a little bit more well known is because Harry wrote about him in his autobiography Spare. Although he didn't mention him by name, he gave him quite a nickname, didn't he? Which was the Wasp, because he described him as he said about like I say, he didn't refer to him by name, but he called him the Wasp, and said that's because without warning he'd give you such a stab with his outsized stinger that you'd cry out in confusion, which was maybe a little bit harsh. But I suppose the role for Sir Clive is that he has is always keeping what's best for the monarchy at heart. And I think that's one of the juggles, isn't it, that we've seen not just Charles but other monarchs throughout the years had to juggle, isn't it, that sense of duty along with that sense of family. And we saw it with a little bit with the late Queen in her early reign. Some people would criticize her for saying that she put the job ahead of her being a mother to her older children. So maybe that job isn't gonna. It's probably quite a, what's the word, divisive job.
Yes.
As some people would get it, but yeah, I think it is really important that Charles and Camilla get the right person in, and they're going to be doing that. And they gave some quite nice words about him. They said, they wish him well in the future, and they recognise the great job he's done. So yeah, it will be interesting to see. We'll keep an eye on that in the next, weeks and months to see who his replacement might be. And like you say, one of the things that Sir Clive has had to guide the King through is the situation regarding Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. And there's been a little bit of an update on him this week. So it's turned out that one of the final honours that he's had, he still has, given that most of the others have now been stripped away, is that he still has the freedom of the City of London, which when you become a freeman of the City of London, it's a really ancient honour. It dates back to I think it's like 1237. Like it's a very ancient thing. It allows the people who have this honour, certain things. It was mainly down to trade in the early days, but now, not so much. But one of the things you can do if you have this honour is walk your sheep across London Bridge. I've never seen any sheep being walked across London Bridge, gotta say, have you?
No, I haven't, but I would love that.
But if
it's a tradition we need to bring back.
If any people who have this honour, people who've got it in recent years, Major Tim Peake, the astronaut, comedian Lenny Henry, if they want to walk their sheep across London Bridge, they're more than welcome to. However, there is obviously a more serious side to this. This is because Andrew still retains this honour. So he received it in 2001 because his father, Prince Philip, had been made a freeman, and it's one of these things that the children of the person who has it can inherit, which he did. And it was a few months ago I reported on this story how the City of London Corporation, who are the people who hand out this honour, looked at trying to take it away from Andrew, and they found there was no legal process for them to do so. So they actually wrote to him a few months back and asked if he would give it up, surrender it voluntarily. He didn't reply to that. And so now they've took things further, and they are actually going to come up with a bill. The legal people at the City of London Corporation are going to come up with a bill in order for the title to be taken away from him. Obviously, it'll be voted on by members of the City of London Corporation. And, if they decide to take it from him, which I think, given the fact that they're drawing up this legislation seems likely, then that'll be one of his final honours remaining, that have been stripped from him. I don't think this is really a surprise to you that they're taking this action.
No, not remotely. I feel like, given the fact that they asked him to rescind it voluntarily, and he said no, which I also don't think is a surprise.
He didn't actually say no. He just didn't respond, which I mean, is as much as no, but it's still, we can't say he hasn't. He hasn't
flatly refused.
He hasn't flatly refused, but he's just kind of, buried his head in the sand, maybe.
Yeah, which I don't think it's a surprise that was Andrew's response. But, I think it's hard to... I understand why the City of London Corporation would be like, it's a big thing for them, it's a big honour, and, there's a lot of historical importance there. And given everything that has been going on with Andrew for, realistically years now, I don't think it's a surprise at all for them to want to rescind that, which is, well within their right.
Yeah, of course, as well. Yeah, exactly. And he was, he had the freedom of the City of York, given that he was the former Duke of York, and that's been stripped of him. The people, the council in York have decided to take that away. They obviously had the legal means to do so. That's been stripped. So yeah, the fact that he's going to get, possibly, potentially, I think most likely have the freedom of the City of London taken away as well isn't really a surprise. We haven't really seen much of him. I mean, I know that he isn't, out and about like the other royals, but we haven't really seen pictures of him out and about recently. He's kind of keeping a very low profile, which is probably, as many people would argue, is what he should do. Could you ever see him being at Balmoral this year?
I don't think so, no. I think the
No,
fact that
me
if,
either.
when Charles is at Sandringham right next to Marsh Farm and we don't believe that they've been seeing each other, I think it would be a huge stretch to say, oh, we'll come up and stay with the family in Balmoral for summer. I think the tensions are far too high, and I think a lot of the senior royals don't really want to be seen kind of
Next to him.
associating
Yeah, no,
with
they don't want to
him,
be
given
associated
his
with.
absolutely shredded reputation.
Yeah.
So I think he will definitely be staying hidden away at Marsh Farm over the summer while the rest of the royals are up in Scotland.
Yeah, I can't see him at Balmoral either. I've got to say, I think it's probably best, from an optics point of view, if the king and him just keep their distance. Um,
Absolutely.
and Marsh Sandringham is very lovely this time of year, so it's not as
Yeah.
if it's not as if he hasn't got anything. Well, he hasn't got much to do, but he can still have as much of a
Yeah.
nice time as he can.
He's not
In
hard done
Sandringham.
by any stretch.
No, he's got a Sky TV. We saw the Sky engineers going in, so he's got some
Yeah.
things to watch, and he's got Wi-Fi, so he can surf the internet. So yeah, that is what's happening with Andrew. The latest update on him. When it comes to some of the other royals, like we say, all on holiday, William and Kate, they've been spending time away from the public eye with their children because they're on their school holidays. So we haven't seen anything from them in public, but we did get a message from William earlier this week. So it comes as these devastating wildfires, which we were talking about in the office the other day, really scary, that have been sweeping across parts of Europe. So he sent a message on his social media accounts, his official social media accounts, saying that these devastating wildfires that are sweeping across the likes of southwestern France and the Madrid and Valencia regions of Spain are a stark reminder of the challenges posed by an increasingly extreme climate. So this was, like I say, on his official Twitter account. He wrote, "Our thoughts are with everyone infected by the devastating wildfires across France, Spain, and the UK. We are deeply grateful to the firefighters, emergency services, and volunteers working tirelessly in extraordinarily difficult conditions. These events are a stark reminder of the challenges posed by an increasingly extreme climate and the importance of protecting both people and nature." And the message was signed with the W, denoting it was a personal statement from the heir to the throne. Do you think it was right that he sent this message? Do you think it was, I've seen a tiny little bit of criticism saying he maybe shouldn't have sent it. It's verging on political, given that, it's talking about climate change and, it's governments that can only really do, big things to help the climate. Do you think it was right that he sent it?
I do actually, because I think it's an important message, and William has made it known for many, many years how passionate he is about the environment and climate change. And, he's very dedicated to his Earthshot work as he's, trying to solve environmental problems. I didn't like, it's not out of character, I don't think, for him to send that message.
Yeah.
And obviously it is a political issue, but I think he obviously has a stance and has never shied away from that stance. So I think it was fairly expected, and I think it was a really, really good message and an important message to send, because these fires are scary.
Yeah, I do as well. I totally agree with you, because people might say it's political, but I think it goes across politics. It's more than politics, isn't it? This is a crisis that is facing the whole of the globe, really. I mean, I know we're seeing the fires in Europe, which we don't normally see. I mean, even in the UK, wildfires are virtually unheard of, but there have been wildfires up in Scotland, in the Cairngorms, and in Suffolk, which is the neighbouring county to Norfolk, near where Sandringham is, actually. So we have had them, and it's been so hot here over the past few weeks. Temperatures getting higher than 35 degrees, which is almost unheard of in the UK. And it's so, I mean, I don't have to tell you how uncomfortable it's been in London, what weather has been like. And I know we might laugh about it, and it is funny, but at the same time, it's actually quite a serious issue. So
Yeah,
I don't think William can be criticised for saying, this is a reminder that we need to do something. And it's not like he's sitting there saying we need to do something and not doing anything about it. He does have the Earthshot Prize, which is 5 years in now. So 5 years of the 10 years that this prize is going to run for. And there has been some brilliant suggestions and solutions on how we can tackle not just the climate crisis, but other environmental issues facing the world. So yeah, I think I say good on him for putting this message out, personally.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Yeah. Another thing that, well, yeah, like we say, we haven't seen William or Kate, but she has landed an honour, which, I mean, I would be delighted to receive this honour. So it emerged yesterday that she has been named the best dressed style icon for 2026 by the Society Bible Tatler magazine. You were looking into this. Can you tell us a little bit more about this
I
honour that Kate
was.
has
So
got?
this is the second time that Kate has taken out the top spot after she also was named best dressed in 2022. And as Tatler said, the Princess of Wales has topped this list before and will again. And it feels the perfect moment to salute Britain's chicest figure as she is back to health and back to being a Brit fashion heroine. The magazine also hailed her Britain's chicest figure and how her fashion choices light up royal occasions now that she has obviously made her full return to her royal duties after stepping away a few years ago due to her cancer diagnosis. And I am in complete agreement with Tatler. I think Kate's fashion has always been incredible. And even though we're only halfway through the year, she has given us some great moments this year. What are your
Yeah.
favorites so far?
Oh, my favorite so far. Put me on the spot here because it is very rare, isn't it, that we see Kate wearing something and we go, what is she doing here?
Yeah.
I think everybody looks at it and goes, yeah, she's nailed it again. What
Yeah.
I really like this year, I quite liked the two looks that she wore to Wimbledon.
Oh, yeah.
So I liked when I say Wimbledon, I mean the finals the other week for the weekend. So for the women's final, where she wore the red kind of top with the
Yes.
fitted long dress, sorry, skirt. I really like that, and I really like the red color because it made me think of a strawberry, and that is something that you associate with
Very
Wimbledon, isn't it? The
Wimbledon.
strawberry, yeah. It's not the conventional Wimbledon colors, which normally are green and purple, but I quite liked. I felt like she looked like a chic strawberry when she went to
Yes.
Wimbledon for the women's final. And I also, the next day when she went to the men's final, when she was with William and George and Charlotte, the green dress
Yes.
with, I don't even know how you would describe it, kind of the shoulder detail with the bit at the
Yeah.
back that kind of like wafted in the wind as she walked. And I really like the colour of that as well, like kind of an olivey, more forest green. And I think she said before green is her favourite colour.
Oh,
And it
okay.
kind of goes, with the color of Wimbledon and the color of the grass.
Yeah.
Not that she blended in with the grass, she didn't. But yeah, I really liked those two Wimbledon outfits. Actually, how about yourself?
Nice. I also have two favorites from this year so far. I think the very dark forest green gown that she wore for the Nigerian state
Yeah,
banquet earlier this year. Do you remember the one I'm talking about? Very
I
high
do.
neck, with the long kind of billowing sleeves. I
Yeah,
thought she looked absolutely amazing in that gown. I thought it was stunning. I love the color. And her Trooping the Color look this year, that baby blue with the white accents that a lot of people were saying was an homage to something Diana had previously
yeah.
worn. I think she looked absolutely stunning. And I had a great time going back through all of her fashion looks from this year so far because there's just so many. Like, she knocks it out of the park every single time.
Yeah, I think the look that when I think back, when we know Kate's going to be out and about, and I'm one of them, and I'm sure other people in the office, they're kind of primed to see the pictures to see what she's
Yeah.
wearing because that's like a big thing with Kate, isn't it? Although we have heard that she doesn't want her fashion to do the talking, but it is going to. I think a look that people were like, "Whoa, she looks great," was Ascot when she was at Royal Ascot a few
Yes.
weeks
Such a
ago
bold
because it
color. It
was
was
just a
such a
yellow.
statement.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that really got people. When people saw it, they were kind of like like that because it was just I think it was the color more than anything because she had actually worn the dress before, but it was just
Yeah.
such a bold color. The yellow, it made it. I think it was a statement, and it was like, I'm
Yeah.
back. I haven't been to Ascot for a few years, but I'm back.
Yeah.
This is me
I
in all my
completely
glory.
agree.
I really like that, and I mean, am I allowed a third? A third favorite?
Absolutely. As many as
I
you like.
I really liked as well when she made her return to foreign travel, well, official foreign travel, when she was in Italy, where she wore the blue trouser suit
Yes.
with
That
the
was amazing.
azure blue, which was meant to be a nod to Italy. I really like that as well, and I think that was another moment where people were like, she looks great. You know, it was
Yeah.
one of those take your breath away moments. So yeah, she's had some great looks this year, and there's still some, you know, great events coming up
Yeah.
later this year to look forward to. I'm sure we'll have another state banquet that she'll be at. I'm sure there'll be another incoming state visit sometime this autumn as well. You know, as we reported on the Mirror, it's been mooted that she'll be in going to India for the Earthshot Prize with Prince William later this year, and possibly doing some engagements as well in Delhi on behalf of the government. So I think a trip to India, that could be, you know, there could be some great wardrobe choices for that as well. So that is,
Absolutely.
yeah, so, you know, plenty of to look forward to. So yeah, thanks for joining me this week, Charlotte, and we'll be back next week with more royal news. But until next time.
Pod save the king!